there's a massive minnow shortage in Minnesota, prom night done right, and why loons are falling out of the sky? We got that and more coming up right now in Target Walleye's Top 5 presented by Seafoam. Let's dive on in. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it sounds like if you live in Minnesota, you're going to have an extremely difficult time finding live minnows to fish with this season. I'm not just talking about shiners, which always seem difficult to find. I'm even talking about things like fatheads. They sound like they're going to be near impossible to get. Fatheads are the thing that you grab a couple scoops of when you can't find shiners, right? Now, it's not just one reason that this is happening. It's a combination of a whole bunch of different things. The Star Tribune recently did an article that does a good job of diving into those things. It talks with minnow trappers from all across the state. I recommend checking that out, but in the meantime, here's just a rapid-fire Cliff's Notes version of that. So first, fatheads are growing much slower than they used to. Last couple seasons we've had droughts to deal with. This year, winter kill. It doesn't just affect game fish, it affects minnows too. Invasive species have put many waters off limits to trapping, places where people have trapped and netted minnows for decades. They can no longer go to those places. Undeveloped shorelines are now developed. Apparently some DNR walleye rearing ponds were accidentally moved to ponds that minnow trappers had been using.
Oh, how did that get there?
Well, those walleyes might get kind of a free buffet and load up, but bye-bye minnows, right? Some state and federal wildlife lands no longer allow motorized vehicles to go in, which if you're a minnow trapper and you got a whole bunch of gear, you got to get many, many miles back, you're not going to walk and carry it all. I mean, the list just goes on, and obviously this is terrible news for minnow trappers, local bait shops. I mean, some of these places might not survive a season if they don't have those minnows to offer people. And in case you didn't know, this is kind of crazy. Minnesota and Maine are the only two states in the US of A where minnows used for fishing must be 100% homegrown in our state, which means we can export and give minnows to all these other states if they're running low and we have extra. But if we need some,
I have nothing for you. I have nothing.
It sounds like the DNR is looking for solutions, currently making some changes to try to get more live bait accessible. I'll try to keep you posted if I come across any hard facts, and in the meantime, we might be forced to throw more artificials for walleyes this season, and I guess there's never been a better chance to dive on into the plastic life. Do you remember where you were at the night of your junior prom? Because these couple of Tennessee teenagers definitely will. Mary Jo and Luke from Anderson County High School went out night fishing after their junior prom on Melton Hill Lake, and she caught this 7.06 pound walleye, and she didn't even mess her nails up. Nicely done, you two. That is so cool. Tennessee? I mean, that seems like a really Minnesotan thing to do, so I was wondering why I had never really seen it before, and then I realized prom usually happens early in the spring before our fishing opener ever even happens. So now that I'm an old man and a dad myself, I feel pretty obligated to tell you youngsters to be safe and make smart decisions.
Don't do anything I would do, and definitely don't do anything I wouldn't do. There's a little gray area in there, and that's where you operate.
Or I guess you could go catch some panfish. Alright, we're going to do a little Flashback Friday here because I came across this awesome picture posted on the Linder's Angling Edge Instagram page. It's Al Linder and Jeff Zernov using some fancy schmancy high-tech fishing gear way back in the mid-70s. Have a look at that. Kinda got me thinking how I bet you even with that gear way back in the day, there was at least some folks getting all worked up and wanting that stuff banned, saying that they were catching too many fish with that high-tech gear. Just like when the first GPS came out, or side imaging, gotta ban it, it's too easy, you can see them 70 feet to the side. Or just like we have going on today with live scope forward-facing sonar. So it's sort of interesting to think how that picture was taken roughly 50 years ago, and with how crazy our fishing technology is today, you can bet you that 50 years from now, people will be looking back at our photos in our gear and be like, how did those guys ever catch all those fish using that stuff? As they're like pressing an internal button in their brain and some magic arrow drops down from the heavens and shows you exactly where the biggest fish in the lake is swimming at all times. A guy can dream, right? Speaking of fishing technology, if the first thing you think of when you see this picture is side imaging, we can be friends. I'm no welder, but that dude looks like he has skills. That bottom line is crispy. And for those of you saying you don't see any fish on that scrap metal, are we looking at the same fake graph? There's clearly shadows on both sides of the boat, and that pod in that top right corner's got at least 8 walleyes in it alone. So it was literally raining loons in Wisconsin last week, and apparently it's a phenomenon. It's like that Muppet song. Phenomenon. Phenomenon. Apparently it's a situation they call a Loon Fallout, and it's when migrating loons flying way up high altitude develop ice on their bodies and they get so heavy that they can't fly and they're forced to crash land. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 or 3, apparently it was a whole bunch of them, and the problem is their legs are way on the back of their body for diving and swimming. They literally cannot walk. So they need a long, straight water runway to be able to take off again. But you know what? As long as they stay the heck away from my creek chubs, I'm just going to pretend like I didn't see anything fall from the sky.
I'm kidding. And I'm not.
Alright, that wraps up this week's Top 5, and a big shout out to Seafoam for keeping us running smooth and making this video series possible. Now if you want more walleye related content like this, you can sign up for our free Target Walleye emails at targetwalleye.com, and I'll see you back in 7.